we will start with understanding the database instance. Okay. So in our database instance, components are SGA, which is System Global Area. Okay. Second component is called PGA, which is Program Global Area. Okay. And third component, okay, which is processes. So these two are memory components, and this is the one process. So in this diagram, we had seen that database instance is nothing but a memory and processes. Okay. So these two, SGA and PGA, these are memory component, and this, the gray area, the highlighted one, this is the process. So this is not a specific area. Okay, we are just depicting here. We are picturizing it here. Okay. These are the processes on the Linux machine. Okay. Now, server process we have seen what it does. Okay. Server process, it is also called foreground process. Okay. There are another set of processes which are background processes. Okay. Now, what does background processes do? They do a lot of work, database work. Okay. Let me give you one example. If the client is inserting data, okay, so client will keep its data here. It is the responsibility of background processes to write the data into data files from the instance. We know that client cannot directly interact with the database. That means client neither can read the data from the database nor it can write the data into database. All will be done in the instance. Okay. So client will insert its data in the memory part. It is the responsibility of background processes. There are not many background processes, hundreds of background processes. Okay. Out of 100 process, one of the process has the responsibility to write the data into database. So it reads the data from here and write the data into database. Okay. Suppose there are some cleanup work. Database has its own cleanup work. There is another background process which does it for database. Okay. So these sorts of work, these are done by background processes. Okay. We are going to talk about important background processes. So we will see what background processes does and how they do that. And now I have just given a couple of examples what background processes does. Okay. Am I clear so far? Are we good with what is server process, which is also called foreground process, what it does, what are background processes, what they do? There are system global area and program global area. So if you are good with this, we can go on and talk about what is there in the system global area, what is there in the program global area.
Yeah, sorry, Indra, can you please repeat once again at eye level? I missed the certain question.
Yeah. I can do that. So as I mentioned, we are talking about database instance. Okay. So database instance is the collection of memory part and processes. In the processes, there are two types of process in the database instance. One is server processes, okay, which is also called foreground processes. Okay. The role of server process is to whatever request it has received from client, it has to execute those requests. It has to process those requests, be it a select statement, be it an insert statement or an update statement. Whatever it has got from here, it will do that. That is the responsibility of server process. The background processes has different responses, different set of responses. One of them is whatever data is inserted by a client, they read the data from the SGA. Okay. Let me tell you, whatever data is inserted, it is kept in the SGA. So what a background process does, it reads the data from SGA and writes into the data files. There is one background process which is called DB writer. So DB writer does that writing. In the same way, there are hundreds of processes which has different set of responses. Okay, if they have to perform cleanup, if they have to perform checkpoints, if they have to perform instance recovery, not many responsibilities a database has. So database does its work using background processes. So when we say database is doing this, that means there is one or many background processes which are doing that particular bit.
If I'm going to import or export a database via data pump, is it also handled by a background process?
Yes. So see, what are these data pump? It's a client. Right? It is the client for database server. So a server process is allocated for your data pump. Okay. Now there is one memory segment in the SGA, which is called stream pool. Okay. So your server process keeps the data in that stream pool. Okay. It reads the data from here. Okay. It keeps in the buffer cache as well as stream pool. So your stuffs, the data pump stuff is kept in the stream pool here. Okay. So it is done by server process. Yes. Background process is for database. Server process is for client. So data pump is a client for database. Does it answer your question? Easter, you're on mute if you are speaking.
Oh, sorry, I wrote in the chat. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was unable to get it. So background process is for databases usually, and server process is for client. So data pump is a client. So your work is done by server process. Okay. Now let's talk about SGA. What is this? System Global Area. Okay. So this is the memory. This is the component, memory component. Okay. It contains data and the control information. Okay. So whatever data is there, suppose you want to select some rows from a table. Okay. And the tables are stored in the data files. Now we know that a client cannot directly read the data files. Obviously, data somewhere it must be kept somewhere in the database instance. Okay. So it is SGA where the data is kept. Okay. Not entire data of the database, but whatever data is requested by client, it is read by server process from the database and it is kept here in the SGA. So SGA is the memory segment, okay, where the data is kept. Along with the data, some control information is also stored. Control information helps database instance to work in a proper way, in an efficient way. Okay. So mainly it holds the data. Okay. You will get to know more insights about this area when we'll go further. Okay. So either today or tomorrow we will explore SGA more. Okay. This is the segment. There are many subsegments. Okay. So those subsegments, some of the segments hold data, some of the segments hold changes, some of the segments hold control information that I'm talking about. So for now, as an introduction, this area holds the data and some control information. Okay. Now all server process and background process, they do their work in this SGA. Okay. If it has to execute select statement, it will execute its select statement in the SGA. Okay. If background process has to do some work, okay, if it has to read the data from the SGA, it will be doing its work in SGA. Now, how this instance is created? What I mean, how this instance is created. That means how these server processes are created, how these background processes are created, how the memory is allocated to SGA, how the memory is allocated to PGA. What happens when we start our database? Okay, so first thing, this instance is created. Okay, this instance is created. That means this SGA is the memory is allocated to SGA. The memory is allocated to PGA. The server processes are created. For example, if we have configured to create 500 server processes, so 500 processes will be created. And the background processes, whatever background processes, whatever features or configuration we are using, based on that, the background processes will be created. So when we start our database, the first thing which is started is database instance. So are we good? What SGA does? So SGA, it holds or it stores, contains the data and some control information. This particular area is used by our server process and background process. Okay. So these processes do their work in this area. And program global area. What is program global area or PGA? Okay. This is the global area of the system. Okay. System means the database system. And PGA. PGA is the global area of program. Okay, program means the client. Now, what is inside the database instance? What is the client? Who represents the client? Is server process. So this is the area of a server process. Okay. And background process also has the PGA. Both the processes has their own global area, which is not shared. Okay. So suppose I have 500 background processes, server processes and 100 background processes. If I'm using my database server in dedicated mode, I will have 600 PGAs created for one for each process. Okay. So if I have, suppose I have a load of 400 connections, my 400 server processes are running. So my 400 PGAs will be there. Now, what exactly work they will do, I will be covering when we will discuss about PGA. For now, the PGA is a memory area which is used by the process. Okay. Every server or background process has its own programmable global area and it is private. So a PGA of background process cannot be shared by other background process or server process. While this is the system global area, which can be shared by server process and background process. This is the program, specific programs global area, and this is the system global area, which can be used. This is shared simply. This is also called shared global area, and this cannot be shared because mostly we use our database in dedicated.
So, like if some scheduler, external scheduler job is calling a Oracle stored procedure where if one thinks, if the programmer thinks that it is stuck and it is not processing any data, and if they want to kill that process, so we need to kill the process in the PGA area, program global area.
No, see, you are executing those procedures from client, right? Either you are
Yeah,
using
we have a
SQL
lot of
plus.
jobs through the scheduler that calls the Oracle jobs and SQL stored procedure, Microsoft SQL stored procedure jobs.
Right. So when you are executing SQL procedures, so what tool you are using to execute those procedures? Suppose if it is a Oracle database, so are you using SQL plus or you are using Toad or SQL developer? And there must be some client. Okay. So what it does, it actually creates a session. Okay. So the server process, it makes a session. Okay. There will be a session ID in the SGA. That session ID will be killed. Okay, so what it does, it breaks the connection. It doesn't kill the server process. It breaks the connection and free up the server process to take another connection. Okay. So this connection will be broken and the new connection will be set up. Okay.
Excuse me, if the connection, I mean, if I kill it, will
Hmm.
also the server process be killed and generate a new for a new connection?
Yes,
I
a
mean,
new process
if
will
the
be
old,
created.
yeah, the old server process will just die.
No. So every server process will have SID, okay, session ID for database. At the same time, it will have the process ID of operating system. Okay, so if you kill that process, obviously a new OS process ID will be assigned to this server process and the connection will be broken.
Yes.
Or let me repeat, the server process, let me tell you in short, this server process is killed, and when the new connection is received, the same server process will different OS process ID come up. Okay,
Now I understand it. Thank you.
Keshav, are you also good?
Yeah, I mean, I got it. Actually, just out of the box question, like we have a Tidal Enterprise batch scheduler. Well, we have like hundreds of jobs that includes Oracle and facets. So, like, if one asks to identify what is the reason why the process is not processing the data, so like
Hmm.
how to identify what is that session ID and how to go through the logs and identify the session ID that is getting stuck because
Exactly.
they will not be giving any job name or stored procedure name or what is the process name.
No, all the things are recorded here. Okay. Whatever you are talking about, it all
In this,
stored here. It's all stored here in the SGA, and at the runtime we can access all the details. Okay. And in the Oracle database, there is something called AWR, Automatic Workload Repository. So suppose if you are executing your job now and you want to see 2 hours back why it was taking long time, you can generate the AWR report, and in the AWR report you can get to see where my query was taking long time, why it was taking long time. Was there any wait event? Was there any locking that time? So you can get all these details. So see, I told you what background processes does. If you have enabled your AWR stuff here, so it will keep collecting the states, okay, and it will keep in the database. So if you want to generate the report 2 days after, okay, whatever you are doing now, and if you want to generate the report for you after 2 days, you can get that report from the database. It's all recorded. Okay, you can get everything at runtime as well as if you have done your work, so historical data can also be accessed. That is something comes under performance tuning. So I'll give you the brief of overview of performance tuning as well. How can you at least identify the problem area? How you can tune is a different story altogether. It's a lot of experience. But as a DBA, you should know the problem area at least. Okay.
And what is this AWR? This term, sorry, I'm hearing now and then. AWR. Can we
AWR,
modify the document like as?
this document,
No, what is the AWR?
it
Those
is
details are there in
pretty.
the document.
No, AWR is different. I mean, it will come later in our course. So this is just to answer your question that you mentioned,
Okay.
how we can get.
Okay.
So far we have not created the database. But you are in a,
Yep.
will not be here. I'll show you how it is generated, how to read that report as well. Fine. So now we have to talk about these components in detail. We have to be overrun. But let me just uh, introduce you to the SGA, and then tomorrow we'll cover the SGA part, because see this architecture is very important. We will be referring architecture very often, so it is very important for you to understand the architecture. So what we are doing now, the next thing we have to discuss the SGA. Okay, what are all there in the SGA? Okay. SGA is what? It is a memory segment. Okay, inside this memory segment there are sub segments. Okay, each segment has a specific role to play. When we execute our SQL, okay, some of the sub-segments are used to execute the SQL, okay, while the other has a different set of responsibility or roles to play. Okay, so this is how our SGA, okay, this is the logical representation. So this is what an SGA has. It has a shared pool. It has a flashback buffer. It has the database buffer. Okay, this particular place, the database buffer cache, this is the place where the data is stored. Not stored, a database is, a data is kept. So if we have to select the data, so from database, a data is selected here, and from here server process reads the data and sends back to the customer. Okay. And I was talking about the stream pool, right? So if you are doing your export and import, okay, from the database or into the database, your data will be there. Okay, whatever data you are exporting or importing, it will be there, and its information. Okay, up to what? Suppose you are exporting 100 rows. So out of 100 rows, how many rows have you exported so far. Okay, so these sorts of information about data pump. So whatever memory data pump process needs, it will be allocated from stream and the data will be kept. From here, the data will be returned to dump. Okay, so that's it for the day. Tomorrow we will be covering the SGA. Okay, we will be going through all the subsegments. What is the role of shared pool? Okay, what is the role of flashback buffer? The database buffer, D2 logs, large pool, okay, Java pool, fixed pool. We will understand all these components. Okay. And tomorrow or maximum one more day, we will understand, SGA, PGA, background processes. We will talk about this. Okay, so 2 more days we will be working on architecture. And at the end of architecture, we will see how an SQL statement is processed by using database instance and database, the entire database servers. And then we will jump on to the installation. So if you are appearing in any certification, if you are appearing in any interview, there are a lot of questions from the architecture and there are a lot of possibilities. So the interviewer or any exam, they will try to puzzle you by asking the question in different way. Okay. So that's why it is very important for you to get familiarized with this concept. So I'll be sharing this document with you. Just share your mail ID with me or the chat so that I can copy it and I'll be uploading this document on the shared drive. Okay, this Google Drive. You can access the document.